often do drive down a street and see a beautiful house and wonder, what does it look like inside? You want inspiration, and we're bringing you heaps. In this series, we showcase a variety of houses: sprawling mansions, elegant townhouses, compact city apartments. We explore these creations and talk to the visionaries who brought them to life, as well as the people who live in them. It's all about sharing with you how they put it all together. I'll also be showing you how to get the look in your own home with decor advice and tips. I'm Juliet Newell, and this is Finest Homes Johannesburg. The Houghton Golf Estate is one of the most sought-after residential properties in Johannesburg. Today we showcase a compact apartment within the estate. It's super modern, with clever furniture layouts to optimize the limited space. Interior designer Derek Tabbitt has pushed the boundaries with his selection of designer furniture and an unpredictable color palette. Derek, before we get into the interiors of this home, tell me a little bit about the estate.
The Houghton Golf Estate has been a development going on for a number of years now, and I've been privileged enough to work on about 5 apartments here. Busy, going to be doing my 6th quite soon. Very, very beautiful finishes, very high end. It's so privileged to work on such beautiful interiors, beautiful shells, you know. So it's mainly the furniture that I get involved in because the finishes have already been done by the architects, and the clients have normally chosen them at that stage.
And fortunately, in this home, the finishes are perfect. They're beautiful.
The finishes are beautiful. The clients get to choose between sort of very light colors and slightly darker tones. And this particular apartment, where the client chose the darker tones, so it was a lovely blank canvas to start off with and had anchors of darker colors. But what I actually did is I added more dark elements. I painted some walls very dark, and added some interesting darker charcoal pieces of furniture to anchor the space.
You've also used wallpaper in some areas. For instance, in the dining room, you've got wallpaper that looks like concrete slabs.
That wallpaper is amazing. It really does. I mean, it's so photorealistic. When you enter the space, it looks like it's made of real concrete blocks, and adds a very kind of brutal approach to a somewhat sort of elegant interior.
In this space, you've clad the wall in curtaining. Is that a satin? It looks like a satin.
It's actually, it's a polysilk, yeah. It looks like satin, so it's fully washable. And it's quite an interesting approach to, instead of doing a wallpaper or any kind of wall cladding, you can actually just put a curtain, and it actually adds, it helps with the acoustics of a room.
Yes.
And adds to a bit of luxury.
And then you've got concealed lighting. That was that here already?
Yeah, the concealed lighting was part of the architectural finishes of the home. What I like to normally do in an interior is, just instead of just your normal ceiling lights, I always like to add a lot of what I call perimeter lighting. So for example, in a lounge, lots of floor lamps, lots of table lamps. It's very important to have that kind of ambient lighting to add to the luxury and the atmosphere of a room.
Yes. Derek, this is quite a long apartment. So how have you gone about dividing the spaces up?
It's been quite a challenge because you can't do one long lounge and one long dining room. So what I did was I created a small sitting area next to the kitchen, which is where we're currently sitting, and it's divided by a bar table. You could kind of call it a coffee bar, because right next to the coffee bar on the server is a coffee machine, and that's where you can have your morning coffee. So it's kind of divided into small sitting area next to kitchen. If somebody's cooking, you can sit there and have a discussion with them, and then the little coffee bar, and then the lounge, and then the dining room. So it's divided into 4 essential areas. And
you've kept the main living spaces, the dining room and the TV room, close to the doors and the view.
Absolutely, what a spectacular view. And in summer you open those doors up and it's like being in a covered patio.
And then what's upstairs?
Upstairs in the most magnificent main bedroom.
Yes.
And there's also 2 other guest bedrooms en suite with ensuite bathrooms. But the main bedroom is got a beautiful feel, quite out there, quite bold.
Don't tell me anything more.
Okay.
Let's go and have a look. Come,
yeah.
Let's go and see. Oh wow, this is spectacular, Derek. Gee whiz.
Quite bold, isn't it?
The red, wow, that is bold.
But it works so well.
It does work well.
Yeah, main bedrooms normally keep them quite soft and quite toned down and quite romantic, but in this particular case, couldn't resist this couch. Absolutely a talking point. So bold, so vibrant, and we just had to have it.
And I bet you it's really comfortable.
So comfortable.
I'm gonna have to try it out just now. And then this piece over here, another talking point.
Again, quite interesting, staying with the red theme, but just going for something that's completely sculptural. You know, you can sit on it, but it's more like a sculpture as you enter the room.
And then you've pulled it all together with this red rug, and I've never really seen anything like it before. What is it exactly?
So this is called, it's a patchwork rug. I don't know exactly, you know, the details of what kind of rugs, but basically they take old antique rugs, they over-dye them, and then they join them together to form a very, very large statement piece.
So this is the seating area, and then you've got the bedroom on that side, although it's all in one, but it is quite separate.
It's quite separate, and you can see in the main part of the bedroom, or where the bed is, there's no colour. So that's really, you know, it's kept a lot more toned down. But it's quite nice to separate the areas and have completely, it's almost like there's two rooms, but they still work quite well together. And
I see you've gone with quite simple curtaining in this room.
I'm a big fan of simple curtaining. I don't like anything that's got any detailing or colours or pattern. I prefer, my first choice would be just absolutely plain, no tiebacks, but just toned down fabrics in the main bedroom. Because it's so bold with the red, rather keep it very simple with curtaining.
And I suppose the view is the big feature in this room, and you don't want to detract from that.
You don't want to detract from it at all. So there's kind of a balance in this room. So you've got the red on the one side, and the other side you have the view. So it balances quite nicely.
Derek, you've got a lot of different wall textures in this room.
This particular wallpaper looks
It's a wallpaper?
This is a wallpaper.
Wow.
Yeah, and it looks like marble that's been cut through, but it just has such an interesting, subtle texture to it. And again, I've kept the colour quite toned down because of the red, the boldness in the red couch. Very interesting texture, and together with that, the adjacent wall I've painted very dark. So you have this very interesting contrast.
Again, it separates the two spaces.
Yes, it does. And, you know, and that's just through the clever use of colour and tone. Pattern on the one side and very, very plain, but quite anchoring and quite dark above the bed.
The TV, I don't want to call it a TV unit because it's not a TV unit like the olden days, those horrible wooden ones. What would you call it?
I suppose you could call it a room divider.
Yes.
A room divider, but it houses the TV on the one side, and on the opposite side it houses the vanity table with the vanity chair.
And then you've introduced, that is marble there.
That is real marble, correct.
Yeah.
So we needed to bring in some real marble.
Why not?
Coming up, Brendan Williams tells us more about these outstanding furniture pieces.
That's the genius of the design. It looks very simple. It simply looks like a quilt draped over a timber frame, but there's a lot more going on in the structure of the piece that really makes it incredibly comfortable and a proper armchair.
And David Rolfs gives us the inside track on the fabrics.
Your bigger pieces very often are in a neutral palette, so there is still, you know, your greys are very, very big, but essentially working with different textures.
This modern apartment is all about clever spatial planning, daring furniture pieces, and colour, colour, colour. Designer Derek Tabbitt achieved harmony by anchoring the brighter colours with neutrals.
Derek, most of the spaces in this downstairs area are fairly neutral in terms of the fabrics and colours you've selected, and then you've got accents of colour.
Yes, I've gone for quite a cool colour palette. This sort of general colour palette is quite cool. So it's kind of graphites and charcoals and sort of greys and those sort of colours. So as a complete contrast to that, the general colour palette are warmer tones. So I've gone for rusts, terracotta, and then for the colour or the surprise element are the acid green or the acid yellow curtains.
Yes, and then this beautiful turquoise vase.
And that's just so unexpected, that turquoise vase. It's a complete, complete surprise when you look at the colour scheme. It's completely it's a real contrast to what's happening in this space, and it really works.
And you've done the same thing upstairs really in the main bedroom with the pops of red.
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite an unusual colour to have in a main bedroom. It's quite bold, but that was part of the brief. My client wanted quite a bold, quite an exciting bedroom, and I believe that's what he got.
The furniture pieces in this apartment are quite outstanding. Some of them will most likely become iconic examples of this era in years to come. Brendan Williams tells us more about each piece.
Some very interesting pieces of furniture here and quite unique.
Indeed, absolutely, yes.
Let's start off with the wingbacks. They are wingbacks.
These are wingbacks, exactly. So done in a more contemporary way. So they're what we would call reinvented wingbacks. They new takes on the traditional wingback. What's nice about this one, it has a timber shell, which is made up of these rods stained black, which I feel give the chair a very architectural presence. Very appropriate to use them in a contemporary environment like this, especially in an open plan space where they can be viewed from all sides.
And then these chairs here, they're amazing.
Yeah. So these are the Ruchet armchairs, which were designed by French designer Inge Sampe. It's an award-winning collection. Quite popular. The lovely thing about the armchair is that they are mirror images of each other, so you get a left and a right, which makes them very effective when used in pairs.
For sure. Could you use them on their own?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely, yeah. Derek ordered them in this sort of warm caramel color, and I think it works quite well with the copper accents that were also from our showroom.
What is that? It looks like a quilt, just covering the chair, but it's a lot more to it than that, isn't it?
That's the genius of the design. It looks very simple. It simply looks like a quilt draped over a timber frame, but there's a lot more going on in the structure of the piece that really makes it incredibly comfortable and a proper armchair.
And now this coffee table.
Yes.
I love this, that Derek has separated these spaces and put this little coffee table area here.
Yeah.
These are yours as well?
Exactly. This is the Jolie bar stool in a quite slick gloss white lacquer, which looks really good with this height adjustable bar table. Love that it's just off the kitchen, and the different zones of seating that he's created really make the place quite special, and you can use the room in a different way.
An interior like this requires a lot of soft furnishings, and with that comes the job of selecting the right fabrics. David Rolfs is an expert when it comes to fabrics.
Derek's used a lot of different textures in this interior, although it's almost the same palette all the way through. You've got your charcoals, your dark charcoals, greys and silvers.
Yes.
How do you get the interest with the textures?
I think you're quite right in pointing out that your bigger pieces very often are in a neutral palette. So there is still, your greys are very, very big. But essentially working with different textures and working with, like they have an element of light in this fabric, it does give it a bit of life, and it gives it a nice sort of a nice context.
On a sofa, you're using a lot of fabric, 20 to 30, maybe 40 meters on an L-shaped sofa like this. And that can be quite expensive. How do you go about getting this sort of look and feel on a budget?
If you have limited spend, you're quite right in saying that you're looking at quite big meterage on a fairly major sofa. But the fact of the matter is, in local ranges, as we stock, we have a great variety of durable fabrics, but also which provide you with a very elegant and very luxurious look, if that's what you're going for.
And then you can incorporate the more expensive and exclusive imports, if you like,
of course,
on smaller pieces.
That's right. And so you'll find people very often using the imports and alternatively the upper end decorative ranges for accent chairs or cushions, and to great effect.
How important is it for a designer to spec the right upholstery fabric?
It's essential, because if you don't follow the recommended use of a fabric and you aren't sure of the quality that you can expect from the fabric, you might find yourself with comebacks.
Where are we with trends?
From a color perspective, I think there's some very interesting things going on. As you're aware, the sort of coppers, the rose golds, the dusky pinks are very current.
Isn't that's the color of the year, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, in the context in which we're sitting, there's a strong yellow component. And what we've brought to the market very successfully quite recently is a sort of a more mustard version of the yellow that you're seeing here, which again has had a very good response.
Those colours that you've just mentioned are quite bold colours. How do they work with neutrals?
Essentially what you can do is use the colours that we're talking about in your accent pieces. So be it geometric design, which remains a very strong theme in terms of the fabrics that are coming through. It provides you with lovely pops of interest in terms of your schemes.
And that's exactly what Derek has done in this apartment. Neutrals with bright and bold accents, plains, textures, stripes and metallics. Coming up, I show you how to get some of these looks in your own home. In today's show, it's all about bright colours and contemporary design. Charcoals with acid yellow, neutrals with bright red, and burnt orange with copper. It's bold and it's daring, and it works in this modern apartment. The lounge is divided into 3 spaces: the TV room, a coffee and chat area, and another smaller lounge.
Derek's certainly got a knack for working with colour and putting it all together. Most unpredictable colours though, if you think about it. You've got greys, you've got coppers, you've got oranges, you've got lime greens and yellows, but somehow he gets it all to work together. So I'm going to try and recreate that for you, but we're going to start off with the flooring. Ideally, one would like to have light flooring in an apartment like that because it's a smaller space and you want that sense of flow. So here is a porcelain tile that I'm going to lay down. If you don't want tiles and you want something a little bit more organic, you could go for wooden flooring, and I've selected 2 colours that could work really well in this space. So there's quite a light ash colour, and there's a darker colour, and very, very dark. I don't recommend such a dark colour for a space like this, but if it's something you like, it could well work. So let's put these aside. And then we go for our upholstery. The main upholstery in this lounge is on the L-shaped sofa. You've got a dark charcoal there. And Derek's layered it, so you've got the dark charcoal, you've got a lighter grey as well, and then you've got a gorgeous stripe on those 2 occasional chairs, and I found just the thing. Can you see now how all these greys are starting to come together? You've got both of these greys incorporated in this stripe over here. Now we need to add a bit of punch, and that's the colour. Derek's gone with really bold curtaining. He's gone with the yellow. It's acidic yellow. It's almost green, but it's not. It's yellow, but it's not buttery. It's really quite gorgeous. And he's wrapped this around the room, on the windows, and then on the wall as well, for a bit of texture. I found this one, which is quite nice. It's also satiny. It's not as bright as Derek used, but let's put it down to see how it all works together. You've got your greys, your charcoals, your yellow. Now we need a little bit of orange and ultimately copper. So there is that yellow that Derek used. Can you see it's a lot more acidic than that yellow over there? So you've got to be very, very careful. So I'm going to take this one out. Although I love this fabric and the texture of this fabric, the color's not right. So let's get rid of that. We'll pop that one in there and you've got your yellow, and now you can see I've started to add the orange. The orange was actually in the stripe on those 2 occasional chairs, but I've added it in as a plain. On those gorgeous designer chairs, Derek's actually gone for a copper fabric, which is quite an unusual color, but it works in this space. So let me add that to our scheme to show you how it comes together. I've chosen a velvet, and as you can see, it goes really well with this orange. It's just a more burnt version of that. That's really what copper is. And now I want to add a bit of a gold as well. You can see that these 2 colors here are just toned down versions of these 2 colors here. So in this open plan space, although these colors aren't on top of those colors, they flow on from them. It's almost a maturing of the colors. I quite like it when you find a fabric that incorporates all of the colours in your scheme. Luckily, I found just the thing. Now this could be used on a scatter cushion, on an occasional chair, maybe even a throw. This incorporates all the colours. You've got your yellow, you've got your orange, you've got your greys, and you've got your creams. And just look how beautifully it comes together. Maybe the bright colours don't do it for you. If you want something a little bit more toned down, keep watching. Let me put it all together. We're going to start off with the upholstery fabric. So you've got your greys again. You can see I've kept the same flooring. There's no need to change it. It'll still work. So the dark charcoal, a bit of grey, a giant houndstooth. Now, instead of the lime greeny yellow, I've gone for a gold. Take a look. Pop it down there. We still need to keep adding to this. I found a gorgeous fabric that you could use for your curtaining. If you don't like the gold, you could go for more of a silver. It's a satin, so it's shiny, just like the one that Derek used, but it's toned down in the colour. And lastly, we're still looking for a stripe to go into those occasional chairs, and I've got just the thing. Look at this great stripe. It's got everything you need. It's got the mustards, it's got the greys, it's got the charcoals, and it brings the scheme together. Right, so what goes where? A quick recap. You need a fabric for your main L-shaped sofa, and we'd go for something like this over there. Scatter cushions, you go for the lighter grey. More scatter cushions, the giant houndstooth. So you can see these three colours together would work. Main, scatter cushion, more scatter cushions. The wraparound curtaining, you could go for the mustard colour, and I think it would work because you've got that mustard colour coming through in the stripe as well. But if you just want to do a small section in the mustard and the balance of it in something like this, you could do that as well. Maybe on the accent we'll go for the yellow, and then the wraparound curtains going out onto the patio, going for this German silver.
The master bedroom has two looks. The sleeping area is calm in neutrals. The lounge area is exciting. Red, red, and more red.
The main suite is the star of the show in this home because of that bright red sofa and occasional chair. But the rest of the room is actually quite neutral. I'm going to show you how to get that look, starting off with your neutrals. I've selected a palette here for you. The flooring, you could go for something like this, which is a porcelain tile, or you could go for wooden flooring. We'll keep it within the same coloration as those fabrics, greys, and then Derek's got the TV unit made out of marble, so we need to select a marble that'll work with this neutral palette. I've got a couple of samples here. Let's see, how does that work? That's actually quite nice. This one. Ha! Look at that. Fantastic. Before we add the bright shock of red, I want to give you an idea of a wallpaper that you could use. It's pretty plain, but it's textured, so it'll add another element to that room. Let's layer it so you can see how it's working together. That, your flooring, pretty neutral here. Now let's add the bright red. It's quite a shock, isn't it? Look at that. The red is separate from the rest of the room. I would like to introduce a little bit of that red into the bed area, so perhaps you could have it on a throw or a scatter cushion, just so that the whole area works together. I found a great fabric. Don't get a fright, it's quite bold. But you'll see it works quite nicely with everything. So let's pop it in right here. You don't need a lot of it, you just need a small scatter cushion or a throw. The flooring, let's put the flooring back. And then you've got your red over there. We still need curtaining, and I've got just the thing. It's a satin, it's quite heavyweight, surprisingly. And look at that. Let's recap everything. The wallpaper over here, the TV unit in the marble, your main fabrics, that would be your headboard, maybe a throw on the bed, maybe an upholstered base. You've got your wooden flooring, curtaining, accent fabric, and the big, bold sofa in the room.